You know, do you guys ever just kind of sit around, look at your project, you're really just having issues getting fired up to work on it? That's pretty much how I feel today. Dan here, DD's Beach Shop. So, 57 Chevy. I love this car, but I'm tired of working on it. And you know what the problem is? Everything is done. And we're just gonna go ahead and make ourselves a bunch more work. So, really, all this thing needs, very short list: electric fan, rad cap, some sort of air cleaner, put in a set of headlights, which I believe I have everything, mount the bumper, Danny 1. I spent most of the day cleaning up glitter, so for those of you who are on Team Danielle, thanks for that, you know who you are. Anyway, and really bolt down the seats and find some sort of back seat for it, and this thing could be cruising. However, the love of my life drives this car every now and again, the dogs, and so when Danielle takes them out, I want to make sure everything is as good as possible. And this thing does have its factory original wiring harness that probably has, I don't know, 5 or 6 circuits. A lot of stuff runs right through the ignition switch. It's just kind of an old situation. The wiring is old, and when you want to add anything to it, not that we're going to add much, but I mean the electric fan and all those kind of things. If she keeps this thing for a while, I'm thinking maybe air conditioning. We'll see. But it's nice to have a fuse block that has a little bit more freedom to it. And well, I figure I'll just show you. Everyone's always asking about these damn wiring harnesses I get. I figure, you know what? I'm gonna put it in. I don't know if we'll start tonight or not. The laziness is pretty real, but we'll do an unboxing. So this is what I get. I got this February 19th, A-Team Southwest Performance. No idea, no affiliation. I got it off Scamazon and I paid for it, whatever it was. These have been getting a little more expensive. They were like 120, and now they're getting up to be like 160, 70, 80. But they come on sale every now and again. That's generally when I pick one up, Canadian. So bear in mind, you rich Americans. Now, there's a few different kits. I typically get ones. There's 12 circuit and 21 circuit. I think those are the two. A 12 circuit's fine for hot rods. I mean, a 21, if you want to run AC, if you have power windows, power locks, all that, you know, power seats, all those doodads, we don't have those. Heck, this thing doesn't have electric wipers on it. So I always get a 12 circuit. Oh, this one actually has a wiring diagram. That's pretty sweet. Maybe they all come with that. I couldn't tell you. Anyways, so it kind of tells you what everything is there. But I'll give you a quick breakdown. In this bag, let's just see what it's got. Quickly. Oh, zip ties, butt connectors, whatever you need. This will be to connect to your steering column if you have an aftermarket column. This is GM stuff, very handy. We're not using it in this situation. Circuit breaker. It comes with 2 brand new headlight dealios, alternator for your 1 wire, handy. This is probably some sort of main power wire. Ground. This would probably be starter, I guess. This may be purple. I don't know. Irrelevant. This is what you're really looking at. Now everyone gets intimidated by this, and it is a hassle. Oh, I thought they shorted me. Now there's another couple options here. Wow, these feel cheap. So there's a few different options when you're buying these kits. Be aware. See how much wire there is on this. They sell it in 2 different ways. Well, there's multiple different ones. But get ones that have lots of wire. There's a lot of the L cheap ones have like 6 foot of wire. So they'll have everything you need, but only 6 foot long. Well, you're not getting the headlights, you're not getting the taillights, now you're splicing. So you're spending the money anyways, it's not nearly as nice. These things here, they all pretty much have this now, but you can see it'll have, am I on there? It'll have the writing on it and whatnot. Now this looks like good thick wire. There's a lot of insulation on that old girl, right? But again, for what we're doing, it's just fine. And one more thing I always recommend, again, it depends what you're doing. A lot of them either don't come with flashers or it'll just come with a single flasher. So this one has the provisions for 4-way and regular turn. So this is like your, I mean, 70s and up for sure. wiring harness. If you're running like a real hot rod like a Model A or something, you could probably get away with a lot. Honestly, you could probably just use an extension cord and 2 fuses. But for this, we're going to go ahead and do that. It has a couple of connectors on it, which I will snip off. But this one here, this is all just by memory because I've done this a bunch of times. This one here is going to be your ignition stuff. So typically, you know, your green will be right to the solenoid. This is probably switched power. Oh yeah, this is your power, main power in. And then you got different things. This is your coil. So I'll run right off the ignition in this situation. What does this one say? Ignition switch, who knows, maybe it's switch power, I couldn't tell you. This is your high-low beam, so it has everything ready to go. Plumbed up, you literally just plug that into your typical 3-blade foot switch, which you all have, I'm sure, and know about. We could get into it, which we will. It seems intimidating. I understand that, but you know what? You don't really got to worry about it. Just go through it one piece at a time. I'll lay this out in the car. I've done that a bunch, but people are always enamored by this for some reason. And I feel the more videos I can do, the simpler I can make it. Maybe I can help someone out. So we're going to kind of do this in 3 sections. There will be headlights, turn signals, any underhood stuff, so ignition, what else? Fans. You know, if you have wipers, that'll go forward. Your taillights are very simple, they go backwards. And then inside the car will be a bunch of stuff. And what I also do on these, if it says on, oh yeah, it does. So it'll say right on here, you probably, well, maybe you can't read, I don't know, it's written kind of crappy. That's what's on there. But you can look at it, so for instance, it'll have AC heat, turn signal, coil, what have we got in there? Gauges, fan, radio, wipers, horn. So it has some stuff in here, which is great. And there's also a few that are left blank. And these, some of them are switched, some of them are constant. And then not to mention radio, for instance. There's no radio in this car. We might put one in, but it's going to have a radio wire. The radio wire is going to be, it's going to have accessory power and, well, you know, and run power type thing, same thing. But so if you ever need to steal just 12 volts, you'll have a 12 volt wire, which you can run anything you want, and you can just change the fuse. So, I mean, the radio one here is a 15 amp fuse, so it's kind of useless. But, I mean, if you have a trigger to a relay for your fuel pump or something, you can run it off that and get the 12 volts from it, trigger it any way you want. Yeah, I mean, just simple things like that. Stealing power. This will have stuff for gauges as well. Wire just kind of run from a sender to your dash if you need it. I snip all that stuff out. It's kind of useless. So it'll have oil, amp, and temperature, all sorts of good stuff. I'm babbling. Let's get this thing in the car. I'm gonna pull the steering wheel off, probably the driver's seat out because they're just sitting there. We'll get after it. So I'm gonna show you, well, explain everything real quick, show you a little bit of my handiwork and the reason we're gonna rip all this out. Now, this is the original fuse block, so there's not much to it. And somebody had gotten in there and they'd made a few Scotch lock. Like, now what was I thinking? Spade into a Scotch lock, miscellaneous, stolen power. Oh, that's rough to look at even for me. This is all the spare parts, I guess. This is all turn signal stuff. Putting this all together. It was pretty ugly. What was I doing there? Anyway, so that's all that. Then there's a big connector right here, which I have taped, which that runs everything to the front. And then this is all your ignition stuff and probably what powers the gauges and headlights. And like I said, all this simply runs on the floor to your taillights. So it's a very simple setup. Probably just one power wire to the heater, which I think all works in this thing. Horn, ignition. So all that's got to come out. Yeah, it's all got to come out. I unraveled this. This right here is everyone panics about. They're like, oh my God, which is a lot of wiring, but we'll tackle it one bit at a time. So I think what I'm going to do now is we're just going to set the camera up. I am going to use the only tool you need for wiring. For dewiring, get this out. I might have to drop the column to get the gauges out. We'll pull all that out, pull the headlight switch out, pull the ignition switch out, and we're just going to kind of strip this thing all down tonight, I think. and that's probably where I'm going to end it, and then go get a snack. And then tomorrow, when I feel motivated, we'll start putting it back together. How hard can it be? Well, it's actually the next day. A little bit of frustration took over last night. I got most of the wiring out, or I guess all the wiring out. I couldn't get the ignition switch out. You're supposed to put like a little paper clip in there and twist it, it pops out. I've done it a bunch of times. I couldn't figure this one out. Lost interest. We'll wire it from the back side, which is a bit of a hassle, but whatever. Been going through some of the wiring diagram. I gotta say, this kit, it's not the greatest. I've definitely had better ones, but they're all kind of the same. This one I think was just a bit of some manufacturing issues. So I got a bunch of wire I cut out. That's all new stuff. And I redirected it. There were some funny things there, which I didn't really like. So I did this today after work. I started. I believe this is all going to go to the front of the car. So this will be your headlights, turn signals, whatnot. This is what's going to control the engine. So alternator. This is going to be 12 volts that powers the whole unit up. So we'll run that right to the battery or the starter. Doesn't really matter. Tack is in there. Coils in there. A few little things like that. Now, this is what's going to be all our lights on the inside of the car, tail lights and all that sort of stuff, all controlled through the turn signal switch. Sorry, and we'll have to cut some of this off. These two are what we're going to use most of these wires to the ignition switch itself, and then this should be to the back of the car for tail lights and whatnot. Oh no, sorry, some of this is going to be under the dash yet. Anyways, here's what pissed me off. So all these wires have everything written on them, so horn, right? But I was looking at it, and some stuff was just run like, couldn't be more wrong based on what the wire said. So I'm like, what the hell? Like, it had the fuel gauge running under the hood. So I was snipping it and doing all this screwing around. Now I'll show you, you'll have to trust me because I did, wire this up. This one right here, number 30 ignition switch. So this is going to be right here. This is going to go to the ignition. So what this does is this is the coil wire. So it says coil right there. So this is where you're going to get your power from the switch from the coil. So power will come in there to the switch. When you crank it and run, it'll go power to this, which then runs all the way up. It runs into there. You can see it say ignition or whatever it is. And on the front side, it even says coil. So we're all good. But then when it comes back out to this pink wire, let's see if I can just pull a little bit out here. It says fuel gauge. Why the hell would that say fuel gauge? So it had the fuel gauge running under hood. So I was like, well, that's wrong. So I stripped the whole thing back, and then as I got back, I'm like, oh, nope, that's for the coil wire. So definitely a little bit of screwing around. It didn't have taillights in it. It just gave you the wire for taillights, so I had to, wire that in, which isn't the end of the world. But just a few little things I'm not overly stoked on. Which, I've got this style many times, but this A-team, or a B-team, if you know what I'm saying. So here's what I'm going to do. When you see it next, this I will run through the firewall on the left side. For the lights, this will stay under the hood. This will go under the hood, but up through a little hole right there. So it'll be the center, like in the firewall, because that's where the engine management stuff's going to go, and for the starter. And then, oh, well, all this junk here, whatever this back one is, this is going to be our rear lights, so we'll have that all go to the back. That's the rest of that. We'll go all the way to the front. So to be a little more organized, we should be okay. Now here, while I'm at it, I'm yapping away. These were the wires that were going to the ignition switch. As you can see, they're all kind of melted and broken. So those have seen a little bit of heat in their day. So we're gonna get rid of that. We might reuse, no, maybe not. So this is the headlight switch kind of connector. It's seen better days, but we'll see what we're gonna use. We might just wire it ourselves with some spades, but pretty simple. We should be able to have it running tonight again. I mean, realistically, all you need is 12 volts to the coil and the starter, and it will run. And the lights will just kind of run all the wiring. We'll loom it and terminate the ends. Very simple. Well, unfortunately, I really hate this part. Murr calls this a dog's breakfast of chaos, and he's not wrong. But this is what I hate, because I think a lot of people are intimidated by wiring. And it is kind of complicated, and you got to take your time and all that. But so many people just, like, I start talking wiring, this boom, they shut down. It's frustrating because I'm trying to make it simple, and I'm just hitting wall after wall after wall in this. So it's definitely not like the best tutorial, but we'll get it to work. So I have everything kind of together. I have everything hot wired, and we got the wires running to the ignition. We have some stuff working here. If I just, like, you know, we can power it up. So we got power to the box. Now, of course, what happened was the headlight switch. We were having issues before where on one click we'd have tail lights. On the second click we would not. I tested it and it's unhappy inside. Something's wrong with it. So whatever. I put on a universal one. Now again, we have power that comes in there, goes through a fuse. These ones here are tail light and park lights. Now pre-64, the way they would work it is park lights, the front park lights would go off with the headlights on. I just run them on all the time. I like the way that looks. This green wire here is just on I added. That will be power to the cluster, and this blue wire is to the headlight. So as you can see now, we have power in, but nothing else is doing anything. We pull it one click back, and we have tail lights and front park lights, but no headlights. One more click back, we have headlights. Whoops, this test light's terrible. Headlights, and we also keep the park lights and all that on. Now this blue wire goes around here to our headlight switch, our high-low beam switch. So that lights up. This is kind of hard to do one-handed. Of course, it's gonna be terrible. So that spade has power, one beside it does not. We'll click it, and it should change. So no power, and has power. So that means everything is working good there. Now, the next step is where things get, unfortunately, a little bit complicated because we're modifying a universal harness to work with a vintage style setup. Now, if you had an aftermarket column, a lot of these things would be rectified, but we're not. We're working with a factory 57 column, with a factory 57 turn signal switch, with a factory 57 connector. So we have to go online and figure out what this all means. One of these, probably gonna be yellow, I'm not too sure actually, I'm just talking about my ass, will be power in, and that will power up the switch. Now the switch here is a little complicated because this is the whole brains of the operation. This controls your brake lights, which is counterintuitive, I realize that, but you have to realize when you hit the brake, there's a brake light switch which will put power to the brakes. But if you have the brakes on and you want a signal, the signal takes priority over the brake lights. Have I lost you yet? So that all happens in here. So what I've done is I've taken the other connector, or the other side of that, and I've cut all the ends. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have to find, where did I put, oh, this is embarrassing now, I've lost them. Panic, oh, here they are. All of these, some of the coloring may match, but probably not. We have to re-terminate these into, well, I'll butt connect them, like heat shrink them, and we'll turn this, which is designed to go into a factory GM column, into that. And then this will connect into there, and we should, in theory, have our brake lights, I think. So we gotta do a little screwing around here. Now some of these are doubles, and typically if it's a double, it's because it will show your indicator. So that'll go all the way down here, and one will just be loose. So that'll have to run back up into the cluster. Hopefully I haven't lost you. It's simple, I swear. Just this one is fighting me. So I'm gonna get this kind of mostly all together. I think I might leave it for tonight. It's already kind of late. I'm just running out of steam. But I would like to get this mostly done tomorrow. Have all the lights working. And under hood, I've just everything spaghettied on the motor, but that's super easy to hook up. And that'll show you, that's a fun one, because we'll get to start this thing. Okay, let's do under the hood real quick. There's only a few wires. This is the fun one that, well, if you can't figure this out, you got problems. So we got our wires coming out now. This is all the headlight stuff, which we're not gonna do anything with today. Maybe tomorrow. I found a brand new grill for this thing. I want to surprise Danny with that. So it's a nice gold grill, which it looks so good. Radicar gold grill. So I'm gonna go buy that tomorrow. Then we'll do the park lights. And again, I haven't even checked. See, I think I have headlights. We might be buying those, but whatever. I digress. Now these wires coming out here, we'll just look at them real quick. Tachometer, easy, right to the distributor. You know what, I'm just gonna start snipping these. So this only needs like that much. No more. This is main power. Okay, that's actually vice grip to the battery. That's gonna run around here through this little factory loom. I think what we'll do is we'll go right down to the starter for the 12 volt on that. Because that's constant power. Alternator, exciter wire, same deal. So this is gonna go across. We'll run that on the valve cover or something like that, kind of like there. That's a little long, but we'll snip that. Actually, you know what? I gotta get a one wire tomorrow. I wanna get a brand new alternator for this thing too. Because what's money? Ignition. So this is to the solenoid that triggers the starter. So same deal. This will go across. And we'll snap that over there. So the red wire is going to get power from the starter because it's going right to the battery. The purple wire is the trigger to engage the starter. So as you on the key and then brum, it's the brum. To alternator power. So this is going to be the charge dealio. What's going on here? So we'll put that one there. And that in theory probably backfeeds and we'll run the charging system, I think. If not, we'll just run a wire off the back of the alternator to the battery, which leaves us with coil, which says fuel gauge, China. So we'll just go ahead and make this the same length as the tack wire. So on an HEI distributor, you'll have your battery, which is 12 volts to the battery post, which would be 12 volts to the coil. And then there's also one that says tack. So we'll just terminate those with spades. And yeah, I should be able to kind of plug those in over there. We're not going to use the exciter wire for the alternator, and we're not going to use the 12 volt charge because none of that is hooked up. All we're going to do is just jumper the wires to the starter. And then in theory, it should run. But I'll show you the headlights, how I think they're going to work first. He'll end it for the night. It's about midnight. I'm tired. So we got some long wires here, but we got power. Do that right? Yeah. Power. We got starter. So that's all dialed. Those two red and white wire for the alternator. And then we got two wires to the distributor. So it should be, that should work. I'm just going to show you under here real quick what we got going on. So I'll put the key on. What am I going to do here? Oh yeah. So brake is this white wire. Man, it's going to be hard to do here one-handed. So we have brakes. It's cool. Now to test the lights, it's not going to flash, but that should be in. It should just go on. Nice. Now if we go the other way, it doesn't go. But we should be able to test the other side. Gentle, gentle, 12 volts going on there. Yep, that's good. And if we turn it off, it goes off. So in theory, everything should be good. The lights, the headlights should all work. Give her a couple of pumps. Park. See what happens here. Okay, so we have all the light. I mean, I know it's an absolute mess, but now I think all the wiring works. Obviously it runs. We'll have to double check under the hood and just route everything a little nicer. We got some proper tape and some connectors, but that's good. All we have left is hook up the front and back lights of the car. Oh, and we gotta do the dash. Oh, the dash. Forgot about that. But it's rather simple. There's gonna be a bunch of these wires here. We'll just tie them into, these are just your illuminant lights. So we'll tie those all in together. We have a high beam, and then the fuel gauge. I think it's a temp, which we're not gonna use. The turn signals, there's a little bit of screwing around, but I'll leave that till tomorrow. We're leaving on a high note. Well, it is in fact a new day. I worked a little late last night, a little bit after work today, but we got the tail lights all working. We got headlights going. Oh, I'll have to signal on. Just testing all that stuff. Look at all that. Do the other side real quick. Yeah, that side's going. Other side. Look at that. Queen D on the plate. Turn the light on here. Ho! So, I went and did all the wiring. Now, I did just kind of a mediocre job. Nothing is taped up or secured yet. I've learned in the past that you get all the wiring done and then inevitably you're going to want to run a few more wires. And since this one's not going to be done just yet, I'm going to leave it all somewhat open, but very simple, just all kind of run nicely. It's all heat shrink connectors. In this situation, I just used the existing sockets because they were working, so I just spliced in. Oh, we'll play the guessing game real quick. So I bought a brand new grill. So this is the one that came out. Now, to the Bel Air aficionado, 150s and 210s had silver grills, and the top of the line Bel Air, such as this one, had a gold grill. And I don't know if this is just one I had kicking around, I think. I've seen them like fade. But anyways, I put a brand new grill in this thing, long story short. But here's the question of the day. What would you pay for this piece of stamped steel painted gold? This one's gonna be a wall hanger. It's a little, she's seen better days. We got the headlights in, so I got two new headlights, all new. Well, the buckets are all good, not rotten. 57s generally don't rot actually as bad as 5s and 6s. I put in the fancy headlight trim. These are always broken. If you're a Tri-5 guy, you know they're always broken. These are in good shape and patinaed to match. We do have our grill bars mangled, unfortunately. They always bust. All the lights are working. I should have backed this thing up. Look at that gold frickin' grill. Holy moly, it looks good. Now, when I first was working on this hot rod a few years ago, I was like, you know what? I should do that. I should put a grill in it. And it was $100 Canadian. I was like, whatever. So I bought one today. The local guy had one, and it was $200 Canadian. And he said that's because he had it in stock. Had he had to order it in, it would have been like $250. Bah! Hot rods. So now all the wiring is dialed. You can see we've created ourselves a mess. I'm going to set up the camera maybe, or I'll talk you through what I'm going to do here. But we've simply got to kind of tuck this, just tuck it up a little bit, and wire in the dash, which is very simple. All that dash is going to have is lights, like backing lights, one wire to the gas gauge, high beam indicator, and turn signal indicator, and that is it. So since it has all the bulbs in it and they all were working, I'll just snip all the ends, splice it all together with the new wiring, put that in, call them back up, and this thing is donezo. Again, I'm going to leave, I'll probably zip tie up the wiring harness and the fuse block, because I still want to run wire for the choke, electric fan. I don't know what else I'm going to do with this thing, so we're just going to kind of leave it for now. I still got to hook up the fuel gauge underneath, but I got to get this thing out of here because I'm going back on the Nomad. So we're going to get that done tonight. It's already late, but we have headlights now. We can drive at night. Well, it's like you're looking slightly less terrible. They're all nice loops though, so we'll be able to put them up. Let's just, oh, you know, people always give me attitude for butt connectors. I love these things. These are Scamazon, but they're, you know, butt connector, but they're heat shrink, so you heat them up and they're pretty sweet. So we have our cluster all dialed together. So we have one just main wire, those are all the illuminants for it. And then we have a high-low beam, left and right. Oh, I forgot to say, this thing was wired. So left was right and right was left. That was handy. So I had to redo that. I actually had to do the front lights that way. And this, what else we got? And fuel gauge. That's all we got there. I like to leave this really, really long. We'll loop it up once it goes in, but when you're sitting in the car, you can take the dash right out without having to unplug everything. I find that very nice to do. That's just mine. These wires here, this one here is gonna be our fan control. And all these ones here, I'm gonna loop these up. These are all gonna be switched 12 volt power. One of them we have to use, one of them is going to be to control the HVAC, which I haven't hooked up yet. You just got to run 12 volts to it and it'll do its own thing. And I think that's it. So we have to hook up the speedo, plop the cluster back in, kind of crank down on the column so it all fits. These one-piece columns are a nightmare. Tri-5s, I gotta say, there's a few things about Tri-5s I hate, and the factory column that goes right in the box is a pain. We'll get that in. We'll put the tack on. Tack wires ready to go. I think that's it. This I'm just going to kind of shove up in there for right now. So if we want to add some wires or do whatever we can, I can tape it all up and zip tie it and make it look nice. But I don't want to do a bunch of time getting all, like I said, tied up there, and then you want to grab a wire or do something or whatever. It's a hassle. Not to mention drive it a little bit and just make sure I have it all right. If Tesla lights, it does run. I mean, what else is there on this? But well, I just want to make sure. All together. That grill looks cool. I dig it. Look at all the proper headlights and everything. Oh yeah, I'll show you what we got going on here. Hopefully it won't be too dark. We got her all back together. Stupid keys. Stupid seat. Ugh. Oh, I feel like a little kid sitting in this thing. Whoa. Okay. So we got her all dialed together. See the lights go on? Yeah, not bad. I don't have the fuel gauge hooked up yet. Got the tack, might be in a bit of a funny spot, but oh, let's see if it works. Did it jump? Oh, it jumped. That's always a good sign. Oh yeah. So I think this thing is as done as it's gonna get for now. Lights all work, it's all back together. We have a punch list stuff to do, but again, we're in the 20 something. It's spring apparently, and it's still, our high is below freezing every day. It's just ridiculous. So Is what it is. I have a bunch of stuff I want to do to the Nomad. We got a bunch of parts on order. I got a whole bunch of things going with that. But what I do need to do, unfortunately, I need the other wheel off this fine hot rod that's on the wall side. So we gotta get that out. I'm gonna show you a set of tires I bought because, spoiler alert, the Nomad's coming in here and I need to see if we can fit these big honking tires in there or not in the next video. So we'll drive this out, we'll park it, we'll get this tire out, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Well, that was pretty lame burnout. Didn't even do nothing, but it did try and crank them both, even though I put a little bit of water down. So here is my all plano. So Nomad obviously has to run a set of American Racing daisies, right? So these are a pretty decent set I have. And they have 275/60 on it, so 2810, but they're measly little tires. Shrunk. So we're gonna put these ones on. Now, if you go back to the Nomad videos, it currently has a set of American Racing daisies on the back with a set of 315/60 tires. So that's like a 30.5 tall by 13.5 wide. These are 295/65. So in theory, they should be the exact same height, 30.5 tall, which is what I want, and about an inch or so, inch and a half narrower, which would be perfect. Now, the reason for all this is I had bought a kit to move the leaf springs inboard, which I might still do, but I'd like to see if I can fit these tires on those rims, possibly with a spacer, and it'll fill out the wheel well, because I like the amount of how full the wheel well is from the side profile. It's just got such a wide footprint that it's a little excessive. So these aren't much wider than, you know, a 275 in the grand scheme of things. I mean, they are, but not crazy. They're more of a tall tire than anything. So that's the plan. Man, these tires, 420 bucks a piece. Looking cool, ain't cheap. But tomorrow, we're gonna bang these tires on those rims. We'll get a bunch of cleaning up and we'll start the next video with the Nomad. I also think what I'll probably do, we'll show Danny outside. It's nighttime. It's like 11 o'clock or whatever it is, 12 o'clock at night. Tomorrow after work, hopefully the sun will be out. It'll be close to warm, close to the pluses, and she can walk around, check out her new grill and all that sort of stuff. So thanks for watching. Subscribe below, leave a comment if you haven't already. Hopefully you enjoyed the wiring, because I sure did. Oh, wiring. So if you want to go tackle the cheapy stuff, by all means, spend the $150 and deal with 2 days of frustration like I did. Or, I mean, pay up. I mean, I don't even know what an American auto wire would cost, but it'd be specific for your vehicle and it'll bolt right in or plug right in and be perfect. And that being said, maybe something like a painless or something along those lines. Maybe their universal kits are at a higher quality than the Scamazon ones. My 2 cents. Zero recommendations here. This might be one of those things where being cheap bites you in the ass and it costs you more time, and time is money. It's like a motivational speech here. I think I'm done for the day. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll look at that car and I'll do a bunch of cleaning up. And next video, Nomad, big tires. Because believe it or not, we're not just gonna run a stock rear end in that thing. What? So we're out front like a bunch of weirdos. All neighbors are probably gonna look at us, but look at this thing. Look at the grill. I kind of parked a little far forward.
Ooh. It matches the shiny on the inside, my glitter.
Yeah, so there you go.
It really brings out all the gold.
This thing looks good out in the frickin' sun. Man, I really parked like an a-hole here.
You did park like an a-hole. I like it. Man, this car is sharp.
So we have just a little bit left to do. A few last little minute wiring things. We got
Look how good the glitter is.
the glitter really shines. Yeah, I saw it this morning when I went to work. But bumper, what else we got to do? think that was it. Oh, interior stuff. We got to drop some stuff off. But this thing is now done. As you can see, it's spring. Somehow, according to the calendar, it's spring. But, I mean, realistically, this thing's probably not going to be on the road for another 2 or 3 weeks. So this is where we're going to leave it for now. But she's done. We get a thumbs up. So all we got to do now is bumper, which everyone thinks the bumper's ruined because I had a small tug on it when I got it out of the snow. And everyone kept saying, wait until the snow melts before you start working on it. Well, we would be doing nothing yet. So, it's ready to go. I'm happy with it. Seats, interior, a little bit of wiring, and you're driving this hot rod.
Heck yeah.
And hopefully its motor's good. I'm sure it's fine.